I'm glad you guys could come back today. So the first thing I have to ask you, we had a challenge last week. Did anybody remember what it was? And did anybody do the challenge? Nobody? All right, guys, last week's challenge was to tell me about your favorite reptile. Because remember, we talked about reptiles last week. Does anybody want to tell me right now what their favorite reptile is? Don't be shy.
My favorite reptile is a frog.
That's an amphibian. My favorite reptile is a box turtle.
The box turtle. Okay, that's a good one. I like box turtles too. I think they're cute.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have lots of favorite reptiles, but if I had to pick my favorite, it would probably be either a black snake or a box turtle.
Okay. Why would you pick a black snake?
Well, they are basically one of your best friends. They are great to have around, keep rodents and other mice under control. And because, like most animals, they're territorial, so they keep venomous snakes away.
Very good. So basically, they kind of take care of your property for you a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that answer. Thank you so much. Okay, so today we are going to talk about what somebody just talked about a minute ago, amphibians. All right. Amphibians are not my favorite subject. There are some very cool ones, so we will go over 4 of them. These guys right here on this first slide, this first guy right here, does anybody know what that is?
Is it
Is that a frog?
It is, but what kind of frog?
Murder dragon?
No, no, no. And that would be a reptile. But no, guys, this one right here, you hear them in March. This is a spring peeper.
Yeah.
Okay. What about this big gloppy looking guy over here?
I'm gonna guess
He's a toad.
American toad. Perfect, perfect. And this cute little guy down here, does anybody know what that is? This little
It's a type of salamander.
Very good. It is a type of salamander. It's called an eastern newt. And we're going to talk about this kind of guy and the phases that they go through. And then this big, goofy looking guy down here, what's that?
The hellbender.
A hellbender, right. Hellbender's fun.
Hellbender.
Okay, so what is an amphibian? What makes an amphibian an amphibian? Does anybody know?
Well, if my knowledge of creatures serves me right, to be an amphibian, you have to, you live part of your life in water and part of your life on land.
Very good. That's the basic one, is they do have gills, but they really don't need them that much to be able to breathe on land. So they can go between land and water. These guys are cold-blooded as well, just like the reptiles, and they're also vertebrates. What does a vertebrate mean?
You know? A vertebrate? No. A vertebrate is an animal that has a backbone.
Has a backbone, exactly. So that's what classifies these guys as amphibians. Okay. All right. So the first one we're going to talk about, this little guy doesn't bother me because they're little. Okay. They're about this big. All right. And you will always hear these guys usually after the first warm day in the spring. Now it can get cold again, but usually after the first warm day, you'll just hear the woods come alive with their call. And we'll listen to that in a minute. This is a spring peeper, spring because that's when they come out of hibernation, all right? They are one of our smallest frogs. They're tiny, tiny, tiny. They come tan, brownish, grayish, or pale orange. So they can be all kinds of shades of brown and orange. But the biggest way to identify a spring peeper besides being this big, look, see this X on the back of this guy right here? That'll tell you that that is a spring peeper. Okay, that's the easiest way to ID them. Their belly is white, and sometimes they're yellowish or cream colored, and sometimes they have little itty bitty spots. If you look at these guys, you can see very small spots on their skin. And even the brown one, the older one, see the big X on his back? Spring peeper, okay? Their skin is really smooth, but their toes have these little discs on them so they can climb trees. And their call, it sounds like a peep sound, hence the name spring peepers. So Miss Shauna is going to be kind enough to play the call of the spring peeper. I know you guys have heard these a million times, okay? So let's take a listen.
Listen to all that.
Have you guys heard that before?
Oh, yes.
Thousands of times.
Yeah, that always tells me that I know spring is coming because the peepers have woke up, okay? All right, let's go to the next slide. Where do you think these guys live?
A small spring peeper. Oh my gosh, he's small. He can sit on the tip of a finger.
Sit on the tip.
Oh,
Yes, aren't they tiny?
That is a
Good guys.
wow. That's a small frog.
The tiny one. Where do you think they live?
Well, like I said, they live part of their life in water and part of their life on land.
Okay, so they like woodland areas. Okay, and they like woodland areas near small bodies of water. So you can find them near ponds, flooded fields, swamps, anywhere where you're going to have trees around that body of water. Okay, and they do go in and out of the water. Are these guys going to go out on the land right away? The ones in the middle?
No, they're in their tadpoles and tadpoles of gills.
Exactly. They can't come out of the water, right? Their diet is small, live insects. So these guys are good to have around too, because guess what they eat? Mosquitoes. They're right near the water. Yeah, they're good to have around. And how do they catch those bugs? What do frogs have in their mouth that they can catch that bug with like that?
A long tongue.
A long tongue, and actually the end of the tongue is sticky. So when they shoot it out, it sticks to whatever they're shooting it at, and they can just pull it right back in. So yeah, that's pretty cool. They can't see anything that's stationary. In other words, if you stand really still, they won't be able to see. They can only see objects that move. They are nocturnal. What does nocturnal mean again?
Active at night, sleep during the day.
Very good. And these guys, because they're so tiny, they're prey for everybody. Mammals will eat them, bird snakes, even large spiders will eat these guys. I don't think I want to find a spider big enough to eat one of those, but yeah, they'll eat those. Okay. All right, this next guy we're going to talk about is the American toad.
Miss Kathy loves this one.
Okay, he is, we just went from the smallest frog, right? This is the largest toad in North Carolina, and it is native to North Carolina, okay? He's got a short, broad body, so you can see he's kind of short and squatty looking, and his nose or his snout is very rounded, okay? And he's about He's about that big, right? So it's really not that big. I mean, if you were to put him in your hand, you could hold him in your hand, okay? He comes in all sorts of brownish gray, olive red colors. You guys have seen toads before. And he often has, see that white stripe down the middle of his back? You can see it really good in the middle picture. That's how you can ID if that's an American toad, okay? His habitat, same thing. He likes woodland and edge areas with lots of moisture, all right? This guy is going to be more terrestrial. What does terrestrial mean?
Lives on land.
Lives on land, right? Terra meaning land, earth, exactly. He prefers to live on land. Doesn't mean he won't go in the water. They do like to go in the water because they like to keep their skin moist. But he definitely, you'll find him more on land. He moves to ponds to meet female frogs or female toads. So that's usually when he'll go by the ponds, okay? And we have a lovely American toad call for you guys. So when you hear that, when you're out walking around, you'll know what it is. So let's take a listen to that. To me, he sounds like he's screaming.
It kind of sounds like a woman screaming.
Yep, doesn't it sound like somebody screaming? It's not that loud. So if you're walking in the forest and you hear those peepers and then you hear that noise in the middle, you know there's a toad around there in the mix, okay? He is an insectivore. What does an insectivore eat?
Insects.
Yes, of course, of course. He has a lot of predators. He's small, easy to catch. Raccoons, weasels, minks, and snakes, the eastern hognose and the eastern garter snake really love to eat him. However, he has a really good defense, okay? This guy has, let's go back one. This guy has what's called a parotid gland. If you see these two big bumps right here on his back, over his head,
Yeah.
those glands shoot out a toxin, okay? And it'll spread all over his body and all over his skin. And it is nasty tasting. And depending on the size of the animal, it can be poisonous. So that's how he wards off predators. He can also squirt water out of his bladder on command. So if a predator's trying to pick him up, he can just shoot him with water, kind of like a toad water gun or something. But yeah, so he'll do that to get away from the predators too, okay? I said he leads a terrestrial life, terrestrial meaning he lives on the land primarily, but he does move to ponds and pools to mate and to lay eggs. So these little guys right here, that's after the eggs hatch. We all know what those are. Those are tadpoles. And tadpoles go through 7 cycles. So here we go with our little tadpoles. And then here we go. They're starting to grow legs and their tails are starting to go away. But I know you guys probably studied the life cycle of frogs and toads in school, so I know you know about the life cycle. Okay. Why does highway and road construction contribute to the death of toads? If we have more roads, ooh, it's going to rhyme. If we have more roads, why does that often hurt toads?
Because he can get run over by cars.
They get squished. Yeah, it's really hard to see them in the middle of the road. And they'll come out at night, and if it's dark and rainy especially, they'll come out on the roads. And it's really hard to avoid them. I mean, they're this big. So, yeah. All right.
Like that's another reason why it's not good to drive at night.
Yeah, or at least kind of drive slow and careful. All right, this guy is an eastern newt, okay? But before we start talking about him, I want to know, let's see if anybody can guess this. How many salamanders can be found in the state of North Carolina, do you think? How many different species or types?
Well, I've heard that in the Great Smoky Mountains, there's like over 30 species.
Okay, that's close. But I'm just talking North Carolina. Think higher.
That's a hard question.
Okay, 65. We have 65 identified salamander species in North Carolina. There may be more out there. That's what you guys need to go out and see if you can find any that nobody knows about. Just in Western North Carolina, just in our area in the mountains, we have over 50. Okay, so salamanders are very abundant around here. They're easy to find. Why do we have a lot of salamanders around here? Anybody know?
Hold on, can you say that question again?
Sure. Why do we have a lot of salamanders around here?
Maybe because they eat insects.
That's a good answer. I like that answer. That could add to it.
I'm gonna guess because it's very.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear what you said. Can you say it again?
It's very moist around here. There's lots of rivers and streams and ponds.
Perfect. That's exactly why. It's real moist. If you go out in the woods, there's always leaf litter and detritus down on the ground, and that's always wet. So they like it because there's lots of wet, wonderful places they can hang out to eat all those insects that Phoebe was talking about, right? Okay, so we have 2 subspecies of eastern newt here in western North Carolina. We have the red-spotted newt, which is that guy over there. Can you guess why they call him red-spotted?
Because of his spots.
He's got spots. And then this guy over here is called the broken striped newt. And you can see why they call him that, because he's got that stripe on his back, but it has spaces in it, okay? Why are these guys, do you think these guys are endangered, first of all? Yes, no?
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Actually, they are not, which is wonderful because we have a lot of areas around here that are under Forest Service protection. So these guys are pretty abundant, okay? The adult red-spotted newt is about 4 to 5 inches long, so a little bit longer than the American toad. It's about that long, okay? They have smooth skin, they have a yellow belly, and then the back is olive green or yellowish brown with orange brown black border spots. Okay, so they can be orange or yellowish brown, but they'll always have those spots with the black circles around them. All right. The broken stripe newt, as you can see, has that broken stripe. That's the easiest way to ID it. He gets to be about 3.5 inches long, and he can be an olive green yellowish. And if you look at his feet, you can see that kind of olivey green color. Okay? Now, this is what's cool about newts. They have 3 stages. Okay? Most salamanders only have 2. Newts have 3. This first stage right here is the larval stage where they'll live in water. The second one is where they come out on land, and then the last one, they go back to the water again. Okay, so these guys are really interesting. They do go through a metamorphosis. That's what they're doing here. What other creature do we know of that goes through a metamorphosis?
Monarch butterflies.
Very good. Butterflies. They sure do.
Butterflies in general.
Yeah, they go through the same kind of thing. Okay. This stage right here. This is the larval stage. And here he's just growing up and he's kind of going to be turning into a rebellious teenager. Okay? The rebellious teenager, he doesn't want to live in the pond anymore. He wants to go out on the land and explore. That's what these newts are. All right? These are these guys in newt stage. Okay? When they get into this stage, they're called efts. EFT, all right? The Fs will live on land for up to 2 years. So that's a pretty long time in that metamorphosis cycle to be living out there. But he lives on there for 2 years and he swaps out his gills for lungs. So while he's out on land, he's still growing up into an adult, okay? But they really like it out there. They like forest habitat, logs, and leaf litter. And as you said before, it's because of the moisture. The ground is nice and moist. If you have a big pile of leaves, even if it hasn't rained for a little bit, there'll still be moisture underneath those leaves. So if you ever want to look for them, be gentle. But if you find an area that's near a small creek or a stream, just kind of move some of those leaves out. In the spring, you'll probably find some of these, okay? Now the adults, and that's these big guys over here, and we can see the spotted newt. You can still see the spots on them. And if you look at the larger ones, you can see how they have a little dot of orange in the middle. And the broken striped newt, same thing. He still has that stripe. It's just broken up a little bit. Their colors have faded some, but you can still ID them. They like to live near permanent pools of water. So they like to be near ponds. They like to be you can find them near big mud puddles sometimes. Because they like it when it can dry out just a little bit and then fill back up again. So they're not totally living in the water, but they do like to be really close to them. All right, these guys, the Fs, and the Fs are the ones that are out on the land for 2 years. They eat small insects, spiders, snails, and earthworms. So they like bugs. What did I say it was that ate insects? What are they called?
Insectivores.
Insectivores, right, okay. So the adults, they like to eat tadpoles. They like tadpoles, mosquito larvae, yay! They eat other amphibian eggs. They may even eat other salamander eggs. So they're pretty vicious out there. Do these guys have any predators?
Well, in the water, I would guess fish.
Okay, that's a good, perfect guess. I mean, because yeah, you know, they're small enough for a fish to just gobble up. Raccoons, minks, weasels, mammals, snakes, birds, anything that's bigger than they are is going to try to eat them, okay? But what's really great about them is their skin doesn't taste really good. As a matter of fact, if a raccoon pops one in his mouth when he still has his skin on, he'll spit it out. It's really bitter and nasty. So what they do to get past that, the raccoons, is they'll take one of these poor little guys and they'll roll them around on the grass. And when they do that, that peels his skin off. And then they'll eat them. But their first defense is they just don't taste good. Okay? How can you help the population of these salamanders? What can you do at your house to help them out?
Leave them alone.
Yeah, that's always a good answer. I love that answer. If you have any water on your property or wooded areas, try not to clear all the leaves out of there. Try not to clear all that stuff up. In other words, let your woods be woods, okay? Because they'll really like it there. All right, so that's how you can help those guys out. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is one of my favorites. This guy is the Eastern Hellbender, okay? He is one of only 3 giant salamanders in the world. And he is the largest in North Carolina, and he's the largest in the United States, all right?
And he's ours.
Yes, he's ours. He can grow about that big from tail to nose, okay? So that's about 17 inches. And he can get up to 2 pounds, 2+ pounds if he eats a lot. His skin ranges grayish brown, reddish, brown with spots, and he'll have a mottled belly, meaning it's all kind of spotty. And his belly is usually lighter than the back of him. Why do you think he's this color? Look at the background that they're sitting on. Any ideas?
Probably because the predators won't get him because he's blending in.
He's camouflaged. Very good. That was an excellent answer. He is camouflaged. So these colors work really well for him. Okay? His head and body are flat. Everything's kind of long and flat. And if you look at his snout, it's rounded, and he's got teeny tiny eyes. Okay? He has a lot of nicknames. One of them, up here you can see water dog, mud puppy, devil dog. My favorite is snot otter, grampus, and Allegheny alligator. And the reason they call them snot otters, they're very slimy. Okay, they're very slimy to the touch. Are they endangered?
I'm gonna say at least threatened.
At least I didn't hear that. What?
Threatened.
Threatened? Threatened. You're close. Yeah, they're a species of special concern here in North Carolina. Now, they are endangered in Maryland, Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana, and they're threatened in Alabama. But so far, we're doing somewhat okay. We need to do better because, yeah, they're starting to look at it as becoming a threatened species.
So I don't know about this. So there's endangered, then a step down is threatened,
Mm-hmm.
and then what?
Species of special concern.
Oh, I just
Yeah.
learned about
Yeah, they go into various phases depending on the counts of the animals and depending on the landscape around them, whether it's being destroyed, etc. So yeah, their habitat, they like rivers and streams with clean, clear water, large flat rocks and submerged trees, and they need to be below 3,000 feet in elevation. Okay, why do they like moving water? They really like to be in rivers and streams. Why do you think that is?
Well, like most amphibians, that's where most of them like to live. And they're safe from most predators there.
Okay, that's excellent answers. What I'm looking for, and you guys probably wouldn't know this, when water moves, you have more dissolved oxygen in there. Okay? So and dissolved oxygen, it means the water's mixing with the air. That gives them a great place to hang out and be able to breathe easily. Okay? So that's why they like moving water. I got to go hunting for hellbenders one time, and it was, you will definitely find them in the Davidson River. Just don't go on a very rainy, floody day, because I got caught in a flash flood with my classmates. That's a whole nother story. When you want to go look for hellbenders, make sure it's a sunny, clear day, it hasn't been raining, and you're with mom and dad. Okay, because yeah, you can't find these guys, but just be careful. Okay. All right, now I'm going to ask you this. All these pictures have these in them. Those rock stacks. Okay, they're pretty, right? You're walking by a creek, you see a bunch of rocks, you think, what's the harm in stacking those rocks? Why do you think that's bad for hellbenders?
They need those rocks. That's their home. Like most water animals, they take shelter under large rocks.
Very good. Exactly. I mean, you can't. I'll go hiking and I see these all the time and it drives me nuts and I throw them back in the water. But you can see this guy right here, he's dead. And it's because his habitat was picked up and stacked up. So he's got nothing to hide under, nothing to take shelter in, nothing. So
And usually with moving water in a stream or a river, the rocks, you've seen how like water really rushes up against rocks in a river. And doesn't that help with the distillation and mixing of the oxygen in water?
Sure does. Sure does. You got it all right. So yeah, so if you're out with friends and somebody says, hey, let's make a rock stack, it does sound really cool. I would suggest finding rocks on dry land. Don't stack or take any rocks from the creeks because all those critters that live in there really, really need them. And what this does, like you said, habitat loss, it takes away their home, but he's out in the open now. So what can see him while he's out in the open?
Crocodiles.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have crocodiles around here. But what would that type of animal be to him?
Maybe raccoons.
Right, you're talking about predators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, predators can find him really easy if there's no rocks for him to hide under. When he hides under these rocks, guys, he's really under there. Basically, if you wanted to see one, you kind of have to stick your hand under there and pull him out if he wasn't out already, which I wouldn't suggest doing. They do bite. Yeah, so just word of advice, please don't stack rocks because not only his habitat, you also have all sorts of aquatic insects, which we'll talk about sometime soon. You also have all those amphibians, everybody who lives under those rocks. If you disturb them, you're disturbing their homes. Okay? They love crayfish. And you find crayfish all over the place. If you find crayfish, there may be a hellbender nearby, okay? They will eat small fish, but they really, really, really want crayfish. They're nocturnal at night. They spend most of their day under the rocks on the stream floor. So you'll find them down. They're not gonna be out floating around during the day looking for anybody. They make large saucer-shaped nests that they can put 200 to 500 eggs in. And they're held together by this really sticky substance that hardens when it meets water. So it kind of keeps everything all compact in that nest. So you've got eggs in a flowing river. If you don't have anything holding them there, what's going to happen to those eggs?
They're going to float away from the
They'll
current.
float away. They'll float away and some fish is going to eat them. Exactly. So that kind of helps them. Hellbenders are really sensitive to silt, sediment, and other pollution, okay? So if you have a healthy population of hellbenders, what's that going to tell you about the water?
That the water's healthy.
The water's clean, exactly. That's why these guys are called biological indicators. That's a really long phrase, isn't it? But basically, biological indicator means, I'm looking in here, oh wow, there's a hellbender. He's alive, he's happy, he's got eggs or she's got eggs. That must mean the water's clean. So that's a perfect way to see if a stream or a creek is clean, is if you have a healthy population of hellbenders. And that also goes for salamanders and frogs and everybody else. If you start seeing a lot of dead amphibians next to a creek or pond, that pond probably needs some work, okay? All right, here are some, oh, wait a minute, yeah, let's go over this first. Here are some books that we have in the Cardinal system on all kinds of amphibians. And I only went over 4 because, oh my gosh, we have so many here. So definitely do some research on your own and look and see how many. The salamanders here are incredible and the colors are so pretty. If you guys ever want to go looking for salamanders, one of the best places to go is Bed Creek Forest. The Arboretum has a lot. And then of course, around here in Madison County, oh my gosh, just go next to the river. You will find some salamanders, but just be careful when you're looking for them. You know, kind of gently move leaves or gently move things. And if you do move leaves and find some kind of creature under there, after you observe them, take a picture, whatever, cover them back up, because that's always good.
And if you're lifting rocks in a stream or river to look for creatures, be sure to lay the rocks back down where they were.
Exactly. Put them right back where they were. I mean, you can't pick them up and look, but just put them back. Because yeah, if you were living in your house, it'd be like some big giant guy came over and lifted the roof off your house and then threw it away.
I was
So,
just thinking.
Yeah, so that would be kind of not too cool.
It's like some giant monster comes, picks up your house, observes the little humans running around under there, but then puts it all the way in California.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How are we gonna get a
Go ahead.
super unimaginable heavy house from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast?
Exactly. But yeah, think of that.
Taking it apart and then rebuilding it.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about that. So yeah, just be considerate of those little guys in the water. Okay, so now everybody listen to my challenge. I challenge you to do the challenge next time. We have 2 state amphibians, 2. Next week, I want you guys to tell me what they are, okay? Don't forget to, while you're out observing, and you can find things out in the wintertime, just look around and listen, you can find stuff. Be sure to go onto the iNaturalist site and log all that in under the Madison County Heritage Group. We need that in there, we need that data. And also log that stuff in your journals, because what you're doing, you're making a record of all your discoveries. And this time next year, you can go back and go, wow, I found 15 cardinals last year. Well, this year I found 25. Then the next question would be, wow, I wonder why we got so many more this year. So it's really good to log down all this stuff. Our next meeting, we're going to talk about winter hibernation and survival for animals that are either not hibernating, you know, the ones that are still out running around, you see them. So we're going to talk about how all that happens and how they do that. And remember, next month, we're moving these meetings to Tuesdays at noon. And the first meeting we're going to have will be on January 5th. Okay, so mark that in your calendars. I really hope to see you guys because I'm having a great time with y'all. This is a lot of fun, and I hope you're enjoying it too. If you all can think of any topics about animals in Western North Carolina that you'd like me to talk about, just let me know. You can send an email to the library, send it to me. My email address is c9s@madisoncounty.nc.gov. And I'll be happy to talk about any animal you're interested in, because that's what I'm here for, okay? All right, you guys, I want to wish you all very happy holidays. I hope Santa is good to a lot of you. And we will see you in the new year.